Hey, I understand why you want to shoot yourself in the face. You think you've heard all of these arguments before, but you have to understand, I mean, I've heard your arguments before too. Not that you were speaking specifically about me. So maybe I should say we have heard your arguments before. Furthermore, I've even shared your ideas, and I still do. It's just that I've come to believe that you're reacting to this term government. There already is no government. We do not need to be governed. We are in a free society already. Now, it's not perfectly free, but if we start talking about the definition of free, we'll find there isn't a perfect definition of free. Still, we could be more free. And I'm no fan of government. Okay, government is a source of a lot of oppression, and it led me to similar ideas that you have, but we do need a common infrastructure. Now, why do we need a common infrastructure? Well, coming from the state of nature, we have automatically a common infrastructure. Things like air. Air is a non-controlled resource, and so far it's just a common infrastructure available to everybody. Water is a similar way, but there's two problems with that. One, surface water never was very clean to be drinking surface water. The more and more people around, of course, the dirtier it got. And two, there's water shortage in places, so even digging your own well, which is a fairly straightforward and simple thing they've been able to do for a long time, becomes problematic and doesn't solve the problem. But you see, we've relied as animals on these common infrastructures, and it's part of our survival. So we need to maintain a common infrastructure as we exert so much influence on our environment that we control it and construct it. We need to maintain this common infrastructure because this is the basic of biological survival. So we need to have a way to have this infrastructure, and everybody has to have a say in it. We're limited to space and time that really exists, and so we have to figure out a way to share it because we're all sharing the space as the starting point. That's a boundary condition. We don't have a choice. We'd all like to just be separate to ourselves. I'm a very independent person. I'd like to just be separate to myself, but I'm not. I'm here with my 6 billion cousins, and we share this planet. And so we have to figure out ways to share infrastructure. And there are ways to have a system that acknowledges people's right to be themselves. And that's what we need to do. We need to, well, really we need to create those systems. I say there are those systems, but really they're just our ideas that we know enough about to have a strong belief that can be created into such a system. But so far we've never seen such a system on Earth. But to think that you want to get rid of the state is just a mistake, because you're going to hand over power to private entities, and they can't have any power. There is no anarchic way for them to have that power. I mean, where does the money come from? The state prints money, and that common infrastructure of money is why we can even have an economy and start talking about how to make it free. If it's an entire anarchy, you don't even get that far. You can't even have the things that you're taking as a starting point don't even exist unless there's a state. And it is artificial, and we need to make it not oppressive, but we need it in some form. So what form of a government, would you accept? It's easy to say, oh, look at this, the corruptions of government and the problems with the principles of a monopoly on force and these things. But we need some structure for common infrastructure and some organization. And so what kind of organization is that? Okay, I want to clarify one thing. So, one, I was saying we need a common infrastructure, and I just want to make sure that's not that there's no misunderstanding about the water and air example. Now, I'm just saying that as animals, we come from a state of nature where there's a common infrastructure just naturally. I'm not limiting the common infrastructure to, an infrastructural organization, which we call government, to protecting those resources. I'm also talking about roads and fire and all of these other ideas of common infrastructure. My point is that biologically, we function best. We have most freedom when we have a common infrastructure, because then we can rely on it. We can rely on the fact that there's a road there, that even if our car breaks, we can walk on that road to get to the neighboring town. We still have some freedom because the infrastructure is common, meaning it's available to us. And so that's my point. It's not just, air and water. That's just the starting point, the metaphor for common infrastructure we had in nature, which we do have to protect as we start to influence it so much, but also just as a metaphor for the way we like to interact with our infrastructures as living creatures. And that's the real purpose of what we call government, but isn't really governing us. That's an illusion now. Freedom is inside the mind, and if you feel free, then you can demand your freedom. And I believe in that sense, I don't have a government. Nobody is governing me. They might have influence and power, but I'm not being governed. I have my own mind and my own free thoughts. And so I don't need a government, but I do need an infrastructure. I need an infrastructural organization to share the commons and to create the commons.